Owning land, it's often a dream, isn't it? A piece of nature, maybe a future plan.
Absolutely. A real investment.
But here's the thing. A lot of people own land they don't actually live near. They're absentee landowners.
Right. And that distance creates challenges, big ones.
Exactly. How do you protect that investment when you're miles, maybe hundreds of miles away?
Yeah.
So today we're doing a deep dive into something our sources explore as a solution, and it's pretty interesting. Leasing that land for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just framed as, a way to make a bit of extra cash.
No, not at all. The material we looked at positions it as a much more comprehensive strategy, really. It's about protection, it's about conservation, and yes, the financial side, too.
A multifaceted approach then.
That's a good way to put it, creating a kind of synergy.
So if you're maybe wrestling with managing a remote property, or honestly, even if you're just curious about how these recreational leases work and what they offer, well, this deep dive should have something for you. Okay, so the first big worry for anyone owning land they don't live on, it's pretty obvious, right? You're not there.
Right. That lack of physical presence, it's a vulnerability.
Yeah, leaves the door open for things like theft, vandalism, maybe even squatters if there's a cabin or something.
Exactly.
But this is where the hunting lease idea starts to get really interesting. According to our sources, how does having hunters around actually tackle that core problem?
Well, it's fascinating, actually. The hunters themselves essentially become your eyes and ears on the ground.
Okay.
Just by being there periodically, they provide that increased presence, and that alone can be a deterrent for criminals.
Just someone showing up regularly.
Precisely. But it goes deeper because they're leasing the hunting rights. They have a vested interest, you could say.
Ah, right. They want the place undisturbed.
Exactly. They want to protect the wildlife, protect their hunting opportunities. So keeping trespassers out, that becomes important to them, too. They sort of become stewards of the land alongside you.
That makes a lot of sense. Like a self-motivated neighborhood watch, almost, but for your specific property.
Kind of like that, yeah. A great example of shared stewardship really working.
And I think the sources mentioned something about tools. Hunters use that.
Mm-hmm.
What that help out with monitoring, even if that's not the main goal.
You're right on that. Think about trail cameras. Hunters use these all the time, SD cards or the cellular ones.
Right, for scouting game.
Exactly. Primarily for seeing wildlife patterns, figuring out where the deer are moving, that sort of thing. But the byproduct is these cameras are also snapping pictures of anything else that moves through the area, including people who shouldn't be there.
Ah, okay. So they inadvertently become security cameras.
Pretty much. And it's actually quite common. The sources suggest that it's the camera photos, not someone physically bumping into a trespasser, that first flags a problem. It's like having a constant, quiet digital watchman out there.
That's that's genuinely clever. A really good layer of security built right in. So, okay, we have the hunter's presence, their cameras. What specific, practical tips do the sources give for actually identifying or deterring trespassers? For the hunters or the landowner, what stands out to you here?
Well, the American Hunting Lease Association has some really solid practical advice.
Okay.
Things like, basic vigilance, regularly walking the perimeter, looking for obvious signs, damaged fences, cut wires, gates left open when they shouldn't be.
Simple stuff, but important.
Crucial, and placing those trail cameras strategically. Not just anywhere, but in likely access spots, entrances, maybe near structures. Call it trespasser insurance.
Good thinking.
And then looking for less obvious things, unfamiliar tire tracks, right? Any trash or items left behind that aren't yours or the hunters. Listening for unusual activity, ATVs where they shouldn't be, that kind of noise.
Makes sense.
Oh, and a really important one, often overlooked. Get to know your neighbors.
Yeah. Good point.
They can be invaluable. Just having someone nearby who knows you and knows roughly who should or shouldn't be around, that can make a huge difference. Another set of eyes and ears.
Okay. So that covers the security angle pretty well. But, one of the claims in the source material that really jumped out at me was this quote, "Hunters aren't killers, they're conservationists." That feels like a strong statement. How do they unpack that?
It is a strong statement, and it definitely challenges some common perceptions, right?
Sure.
But the sources back it up by pointing to, well, the money, for one thing.
Okay.
They state that hunting activities actually generate the overwhelming majority of funding for wildlife in North America.
Really? How does that work?
Well, take the Pittman-Robertson Act in the U.S., for example. It's funded by excise taxes on firearms, ammunition, archery gear, basically hunting equipment.
Oh,
And since 1937, that act alone has generated something like over $16 billion,
yeah.
all specifically earmarked for wildlife conservation, habitat restoration, research.
Wow, that's significant.
It's huge. It's directly responsible for the recovery of species like wild turkeys, wood ducks, pronghorn antelope, and it's funded countless acres of habitat work. So when you lease your land for hunting, you're tapping into that system directly and indirectly.
So the lease fee itself might be small, but it's part of a much bigger conservation engine.
Exactly. But it's not just the funding structure. The sources also talk about the deeper motivation for many hunters.
Okay.
It argues that many hunters have a genuine love for the outdoors, for the flora and fauna, that the drive isn't solely about the kill, as the stereotype might go. It's more about this connection with nature, which, as one source puts it, is like the foundation of human history as well as the future of it.
That's a pretty profound way to put it.
It is. And from that perspective, leasing land to responsible hunters is seen as aligning with wildlife's best interests. They often actively manage the habitat on the leased land, to food plots, controlling invasive species, that kind of thing.
So it reframes it from just resource extraction to active stewardship.
Precisely. That's the core idea presented.
That is. Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. Beyond security and conservation, there's the simple, practical stuff. Property maintenance, that's tough from far away.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to miss things when you're not there regularly.
Right. What kinds of things might hunters notice that an absentee owner would miss?
Well, the sources give some good examples. Imagine a neighbor starts doing some work, maybe clearing brush or building a fence right up against your property line, maybe even slightly over it.
Okay, yeah, boundary issues.
Exactly. Or a big storm comes through, tree falls across an access road. Simple problem, but if you don't know, you can't fix it.
Right, blocks access for you or anyone else.
Or maybe a small leak develops in an outbuilding's water line, or wind damages a roof. Things that start small but can become big, expensive problems if they aren't caught early. A hunter who's regularly walking the property is much more likely to spot those things.
And they have a reason to let you know, presumably.
Generally, yes. It's in their interest, to keep the property accessible and usable. So, getting a quick call or email about a downed tree or a suspicious wet patch near a pipe, that provides, as the source material says, additional peace of mind. It's invaluable.
That makes total sense. It's like having an informal property manager for specific kinds of issues.
In a way, yes, for spotting those kinds of physical changes or problems.
Okay, so we've got security, conservation support, maintenance oversight. These are all really compelling benefits. But let's talk about the bottom line, the money.
Right. Can't forget that.
What do the sources say about the financial side of hunting leases?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, really. The lease payments generate increased passive income for the landowner.
Passive income is always nice.
Absolutely. And that extra revenue can be really useful. It can help offset property taxes, which can be substantial. Or you could reinvest it back into the land, maybe fund some improvements, repairs to a cabin, planting trees, whatever enhances the property value or usability.
Right. Makes the land pay for itself, in a way.
Exactly. Or just contribute to the overall bottom line. As one source puts it pretty simply, extra income is always a good thing.
Can't argue with that.
It turns an asset that might otherwise just be sitting there costing you taxes into something that generates revenue.
So what does this all mean? When you pull all these threads together, the security, the conservation angle, the maintenance help, the income, what's the big picture message?
What's fascinating here is how the sources seem to reframe the whole idea of land ownership, especially for someone who's not living on the property.
How so?
It shifts from thinking of it as this maybe vulnerable, distant thing you just hold on to something you can actively manage and protect, even from afar. And you do it by leveraging shared interests.
Shared interests with the hunters.
Exactly. Through that shared stewardship idea we talked about. So leasing the land isn't just a transaction. It becomes this strategic, multi-pronged approach. It uses the hunter's presence interest to deliver security, conservation benefits, maintenance oversight, and financial return. It's presented as a really smart way to manage that remote asset.
Okay, we've unpacked this deep dive quite a bit.
Yeah.
The enhanced presence, monitoring for trespassers, the surprising conservation angle, keeping an eye on maintenance, generating income. What stands out to you about all this?
What's fascinating here, I think, is that reframing. moving beyond just owning to stewarding, even remotely through partnership.
Yeah.
It suggests that finding those points of shared interest, like between a landowner and a responsible hunter, can unlock really practical ways to protect and enhance something valuable, even when you can't be there all the time.
So what does this all mean for you? Maybe think about other assets or even relationships in your own life. Could viewing them through a lens of shared stewardship, finding those common goals, that deeper connection, like the connection with nature mentioned, could that unlock unexpected value? Maybe new forms of protection or growth beyond just traditional ownership or control, something to mull over.